Education specialist Professor Mary Metcalfe now joins us for more insight into the challenges faced by both the authorities and the learners in this particular case. Good evening and thank you so much for your time, Professor. Certainly a difficult decision, a difficult position that the department is finding itself in. Was it unavoidable?
I believe it was unavoidable. It's important for learners who've written the exam to know that it's fair. It's important for them for the rest of their lives to be able to hold on to a national senior certificate result that everybody trusts. So once you have a leakage, which as the minister has indicated, uses electronic means of communication, then you can't tell how far it's reached. And the only fair way to ensure that we have a national senior certificate that everyone trusts is to rewrite the papers.
Some unions have come out, SATU, saying that this was the worst decision. It shouldn't have been taken. And they certainly do not agree with this particular decision. What do you say to that?
I would say that to have that discussion, I would need more information about how extensive the leakage was. I don't know. I'm certain that the minister, the DBE, the Umalusi have looked at how extensive the leakage was. From what we know, or what the minister knows, she obviously feels that it was enough to justify a decision that would say that the results on the basis of the paper that was leaked are no longer fair.
Mm.
The issue is, leakages have been there for a long time. In the period between 94 and 98, 99, there were leakages, and those were based on paper distribution. Somebody got hold of the paper, made copies, distributed them, and sold them. This year, it's a whole new terrain because, as the minister has said, the papers have been spread electronically. What does that mean? Does it mean it goes on WhatsApp, on short messages, on what kind of electronic information? And then we all know the concept of viral. Once one person has got it, it just multiplies.
Mm. And when you then look at, something you touched on a little earlier on in this conversation, the credibility of such an exam paper, certainly a cloud was always going to hang above, the matriculants' heads if this particular decision was not taken.
Yes, that a matriculant who may have worked really hard and invested a lot of energy in preparing themselves might find that even his own teachers and peers might say, "How did you do so well?" Now, I understand the position of the unions because teachers have had a very tough year. My sense of talking to teachers, talking to school leaders, is that they really are exhausted and burnt out. So, this means that schools will have to remain open for 2 days after the official close of schools in order to accommodate the writing of the second paper. That's bad news for teachers, it's bad news for principals, it's bad news for officials. But in my view is that I will trust the thorough investigation of Umalusi and the DBE that has said this is necessary. And we should all just express our appreciation to the teachers who've worked so hard to get the matriculants to this point. And we need to just wish the class of 2020 strength to get through this additional pressure on them.
And when you look at, the learners, we spoke to an expert here on Newsroom Africa just a little earlier on in the afternoon, who was saying that this is going to be heavy for matriculants who are finding themselves in this particular position because they've had to go through a vigorous process of preparing for the exams. Now they have to do it all over again.
And not only that, if you look at what papers are written in what weeks, there may be learners who have finished writing all of their papers or finish writing all of their papers next week. Suddenly, all of their plans have to change because on the 15th and 17th, when they thought they were finished, they now have to write. So it may have huge implications for families and certainly psychologically when you think you're going to be finished to pick yourself up again and climb the mountain again. It's really not fair.
And how should parents then, handle these kinds of anxieties that are going to now come out of this because they have to climb the mountain again, and certainly it's not going to be easy for their children.
I think that one needs to give the learners an opportunity to express their anger and frustration. They also do need a break. So if I was a parent of a matriculant this year, I would look at how many days we have between now and when they write the maths paper 2 and the physical science paper 2. And I would plan for a bit of a break and then for a dedicated number of days to refresh, to revise. I would try and get them to see the positive side. Perhaps they will do even better. They've got the advantage of recently writing a serious test paper, and now they've got the advantage of a couple of extra days to do even better. There may be learners who felt they hadn't done well. Maybe they will need to look at it as something that's almost um, a blessing, a mixed blessing for them because they've got a chance to do better. I guess I'm saying we just have to try and look at the bright side, but allow learners to express their anger, frustration, and disappointment, and then to start getting ready.
The minister is saying that this is the first national rewrite. She's had to, deal with some provincial ones, but certainly it's going to be challenging going forward because, as you said earlier, it used to be leaked with the, papers, people making copies, and you could maybe even tell just how far it may have spread. But now electronically, it's going to be making things difficult going forward. What can the department do to try and prevent a situation like this in future? And is it even possible?
Mm. My understanding of how tight the security of the exam process is that it's constantly being tested, stress tested, that the role of Umalusi is to do another quality assurance of security. But people who are unscrupulous will find ways. And the danger of the current situation is because, as you say, the electronic distribution. I think that learners need themselves to realize that if they accept the veracity of some paper that's been given to them, they themselves are colluding with criminals. And I think that we need to make them aware that there's a risk in accepting the veracity of that paper. It may not even be valid. It could be a prankster saying, here's the paper, and they may be preparing not sensibly as they should, but they may be preparing for something that's not correct. So, parents, community members, learners need to know that this kind of practice, whether it's being distributed by people for money or because somebody was just behaving criminally, it's not good for the system.
And what conversations should unions be having with their members tonight, teachers, especially because they, as you said, they've had a difficult year. Fatigue has certainly kicked in, but they now have to invigilate, these matriculants and really make sure that everything is above board. What conversations should be taking place, in those sectors tonight?
Sorry, Bongi, would just repeat the question very briefly. There was talking elsewhere in the feed.
Apologies. What conversations should be taking place between unions and their members tonight? Because it's the teachers that are also going to invigilate, and they themselves, as you said earlier, are fatigued, and they've had a difficult year of dealing with COVID-19, and also some of them, still even fearing, to work in an environment that can see a second surge.
Absolutely. And teachers, let's be clear that the country owes a huge debt of appreciation to our teachers. They've worked so hard this year under difficult circumstances. Teachers are going to be marking from after the exams are written until sometime in January, before the results are released in February. Markers are going to be completing the marking just a few days before they have to go back to school. I really think that the narrative in our country should become focused on let's appreciate what teachers do. So the position of the unions, I'm sure, I haven't seen their statements, must be informed by that sense of frustration that teachers yet again are being asked to go above the call of duty. But our teachers work hard for the future of this country. They work hard for our learners. And I'm sure that this additional 2 days of exams at a difficult time, it will be supported by teachers. What we need always is to make sure that the unions have the information, that they're part of understanding the problem that needs to be solved. But I have sympathy for the exhaustion of teachers and school leaders.
Professor Metcalfe, it's always a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you so much for your time tonight. That's Education Specialist, Professor Mary Metcalfe.